गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. We are in Ishavasya Upanishad, verse number 14 we have to begin, and last week we saw in the 12th and the 13th verse अंधम तम प्रविशन्ति ये असंभूतिम उपासते ततो भूय इव ते तमः यौ संभूत्या गंगरताः. That those who follow the asambhuti, the unmanifest, they enter into darkness, into deep darkness, and those who follow sambhuti, that is Karya Brahma is the manifest, and they are involved with that, they are contemplating on that, they are meditating on that, they enter into an even deeper darkness. This we explained last class. And then here the phala is told. What is that? Anya devahu sambhavat anyadahura sambhavat idhi shushrumadhiranam yenas tadvichachakshire. The question was, the verse previous to that, what we were doing in the 11th verse, Vidyamcha. We are looking at Vidya and Avidya. Avidya was called as Karma and Vidya was told as Upasana. Upasana means Upasit, sitting near. That which takes you near to the divine is called Upasana. It's the means. This is right now, it is Upasana going on. You are listening. In my case, it is talking. Unnecessary. Upasana. Upasana is not the goal. Upasana is the means. And some people do Upasana and some people follow Karma. That was told. Now the student says, okay, if I want to do Upasana, what do I have to do? Should I be following the Upasana of formless or with form? Asambhuti or Sambhuti? Sambhuti is manifest with form, Asambhuti is unmanifest without form. And I explained to you all that last time. And now here, the teacher in that in the 12th verse condemned that those who follow either Sambhuti or Asambhuti independently, those who follow meditation, contemplation, Upasana, involvement with form to the exclusion of formless, or contemplate on the formless to the exclusion of form. And what are the hiccups, what are the drawbacks of doing that was told. Because those who follow the, the, the asambhuti, unmanifest, they enter into Jada Samadhi. I think that was told there. It was told Jada Samadhi. And those who follow the manifest, okay, I should rephrase, it was told there in the 12th verse that those who follow the unmanifest, they enter into darkness, they enter into void, they enter into absence, nothingness, shunya. All these are different, ignorance. And those who follow the form, the manifest, the sambhuti, they enter into deeper darkness. There is no hope for their salvation after that. So, and that is if a seeker is following one or the other upasana. Either he is following the manifest or he is following the manifest. Why? Because each one of them gives a different result. When you follow, here it was told in the 13th verse, Anya devahu sambhavat, anya dahura sambhavat, iti shushruma dhiranam yenas tadvichachakshire. So here it was told that those who follow the manifest, what are the manifest? And what is the unmanifest? That if we do the upasana of the avyakta means unmanifest, it was told that it gives you a different result, and the one who follows the manifest, that gives you a different result. So the intelligent people, so the wise people have told from their experience. So what is the result that you get? Now the second verse, 14th verse will tell us what is the result that you get by following the manifest and by following the unmanifest. When you do upasana, what is the result that you get? But also remember, upasana is also kriya, but a subtle kriya. You are continuously thinking, you are continuously putting your attention somewhere. Where are you putting your attention? On nothingness or on some manifestation? So here it says, today's verse, so we have to start from the top now. And another two words that they used in the commentary with regards to asambhuti and sambhuti. Asambhuti, unmanifest, was called as Karana Brahma, the total cause, which is unmanifest. And Sambhuti, the manifest, is called as Karya Brahma, the manifest universe, totality. The manifest totality and unmanifest totality. So now in the 14th mantra it says Yata eva mataha samuchchayaha sambhuti asambhuti upasanayoho yukta eva eka purusharthatvat chet iti aha. Because it is so, therefore sambhuti and asambhuti upasana, must be practiced together. Why we have to practice it together? Because we don't want separate results. We want both to be helping each other. And when they help, when practiced together, they will help us. And why should we do it? Because the wise people have suggested so. Simple. No responsibility. No independent thinking. This all problem begins when we start thinking independently. That I have to come to my conclusions by reading this verse. Go to dogs, because you can never understand. What we are teaching you through the Upanishad is what I was taught, we were taught by our teacher. He was taught by his teacher. And that teacher student passing the knowledge goes back to 8th century when Shankaracharya came. So that much strength, that much what do you call, how should I say, the parampara is there, the lineage is there. So many masters' experience added. Then it has come to us. So we also do not, as a student, we also do not attempt to try and find our own meaning. Instead, our meaning must, whatever our independent thinking is, if because it is inevitable, but our independent thinking must synchronize with the logic of the scriptures. Our conclusion must be as given in the scriptures, as given in the Upanishad. And if it is not so, then we are going the wrong way. Then why you want to do the long beat around the bush and then come to the source? Why not follow the source itself? If whatever you do has to be confirmed by the scriptures, why not study the scriptures then? And analyze your experience in the light of the scriptures, where the truti is, where the error is taking place in our approach. So here they are saying that these two, the upasana on the unmanifest and the manifest, must be done together. And if they are practiced together, then alone it will be beneficial, or else not. Sambhutim cha vinasham cha yastad vedo bhayagam saha vinashena mityum tirtva sambhutya mrutamashnute. Now two results are given in this. If you follow asambhuti, the unmanifest, what is the result? And if you follow manifest, what is the result? And they introduced a new word apart from sambhuti, asambhuti, and that is vinasham. Vinasham means destruction. So what does it say here? The one who knows what asambhuti, the unmanifest, and karya brahma, the sambhuti, the manifest, the one who knows them together, side by side, then such a person, by doing the upasana, by being focused, single pointed on Karya Brahma, on the manifest.
Alert from Malwarebytes agent. Version update available.
I am also updating my version by reading the Upanishad. It's giving too many errors. It hangs up every night, every morning. Latest version, Upanishad, Ishavasya Upanishad. New program. So what we are saying, that one who does upasana of Karya Brahma, the manifest, the one with form, then by meditating, contemplating, focusing on them, he attains deathlessness. He attains great. They will explain afterwards. He goes beyond death, they say. And then because he is practicing them together, he goes beyond death, meaning what? Another understanding of it, he goes beyond death, meaning he becomes fearless of death. He understands what the principle of death is. Then he continues to meditate upon from first it was manifest form, now it is unmanifest, Karan Brahma, Asambhuti. And when he does that, and how does he do that? Through Prakriti Laya. What is Prakriti Laya? Last time just towards the end of the class I was mentioning that Prakriti Laya is the gross body is part and parcel of the subtle body. Subtle body is part and parcel of the causal body. Causal body, till here, causal body is unmanifest. Another way, the waking state and the dream state, Karya Brahma, manifest forms, they are part and parcel of the unmanifest, the deep sleep state, the Sushupti, the unmanifest. So Prakriti Laya means going step by step, going back to the source. And there are many different ways. One I just told you. See, the first rule is every effect must have a cause. Second rule is cause alone expresses as many effects. This you put it into your database somewhere. Everything that you see is an effect. It must have a cause. Ornament is an effect, gold is the cause. Wave is the effect, water is the cause. Or ocean is the cause. You are the effect, parents are the cause. Pot is the effect, mud is the cause. So from effect we can infer that there must be a cause, and cause is always of two types, material cause and efficient cause. Understand? So here we are only talking about material. By unmanifest and manifest, we are not talking about the other one. We are only talking about the material cause here. But the seeker or the individual, he doesn't understand. So he is thinking he is the one, he is the body, he is the mind. So body is there, body cannot function without the pranas. So he does the merging of the form into the breath. How does he do that? By thinking about the breath, that without breath this body is nothing. Then now prana is there. Now he merges the pranas into the mind. How? By focusing on the mind. Then he merges the erratic mind, the emotional mind, into the intellect, the buddhi, the thing which is decisive. And this all happens by faith only. And this is then buddhi is merged back into what? If the immanent is not thought about, if the subjective approach is not there, Prakriti Laya ends here. Gross body into the vital air merged into the mental into the intellectual into the causal, into the Anandmaya Kosh, into the ecstasy. And that's it. into the total space. What after that? Because no subjective approach. From morning till night you are doing yoga or you are doing Kapalbhati, pranayam, etc., etc. Another way of looking at it is there are many ways of Prakriti Lay. Prakriti Lay means the Mooladhar is merged into the Swadhisthana into the Manipur into the Anahat into the Vishuddhi Chakra into the Agya Chakra into the Sahasrar. This is also Prakriti Lay. Another Lay means absorption, merging or absorption. Another way of approach is the earth element is merged into the water element. Water element, because we are below the genitals, is earth element. In fact, below the navel is the earth element. At the navel is the water element. At the chest is the fire element. At the throat is the air element. And at the head is the space element. So you merge earth in, absorb earth into the water into the fire into the air into the total space, and total gross space into mental space. But the journey stops there, because we are not subjective in nature. We are not contemplated upon the conscious principle. So this is Prakriti Lay. Remember, we are contemplating on the unmanifest. We are not contemplating on Atma. We are not contemplating on the self. On the Karana Brahma. That is the Avyakta, the unmanifest, the total unmanifest. And by this, one attains to Amrutatva, attains to relative immortality. So last week we were talking about it a bit, but today let's see what the commentary says. Sambhutim cha vinasham cha यस्तद् वेदो भयगं सह विनाशो धर्मः यस्य कार्यस्य स तेन धर्मिणा अभेदेन उच्यते विनाश इति. That person who does upasana of asambhuti, the unmanifest, and vinash. Vinash means destruction. I told you one new word is introduced here, vinasham. What is this vinasham? Vinasham is nothing but what? I am thinking. When you follow manifest, any form, when you contemplate on it, the nature of the form, the nature of the manifest is to dissolve away after some time. The manifest is never permanent, right? The manifest is never permanent, and therefore the word for sambhuti, another word used is vinasham, that which is subject to destruction. And when you reach destruction, what is there? When the form is destroyed, what is there?
The conscious principle.
No. In this context, in the context of the verse, what you are saying is correct, because your approach is subjective. But this fellow is not subjective, he is only doing upasana. So when form is destroyed, then what is left behind?
Aham.
Again you are subjective.
You lose the Mrityubhayam, Swamiji.
No. If form is destroyed, what is left behind? When you go to sleep, and your form as you know it right now, it goes through destruction because you can't remember yourself. Then what is left behind?
Nirgunadvatva.
Huh?
Asambhuti.
The mind and
You're overthinking. Simple, yaar.
Atma.
Nothing is left behind.
Atma.
Nothing is left behind. When form is destroyed, if form is destroyed, what is the next stage? Formless. What is when form is destroyed? What is the next stage? Formless. When manifest is destroyed, what is the next stage? Unmanifest. It's a natural progression. We are talking about laya. We are talking about step by step. Here we are talking about upasana. We are not talking about the self. Here the topic, these last few verses that are going on from 9th onwards, I think they are explaining the second verse, not the first verse. The second verse is for those people who feel they have to do something in this world. So the one who feels that he has to do something, who feels that I am someone, I was born, I have to live long. For that it was told before vidya avidya. Now we are talking about from that vidya avidya. Now vidya is taken. Vidya was what? Upasana. Avidya was what? Karma. Now we are going deeper into upasana. That upasana is now again has two tentacles, one with form and one without form. Drishanuvit and eventually it comes to Shabdanuvit Samadhi, and Shabdanuvit eventually goes to Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So Asamprad will take you where? Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Asambhuti will take you where? Nirvikalpa Samadhi. But is Nirvikalpa Samadhi equal to realization? No. Because we come out of it and again the body identification is there. Again the individuality is there. So it final merging, absorption into the self as the self has not taken place. So here we are talking about that person. The student asked, why should I not follow the manifest or the unmanifest separately? Then it was told, because now in this verse they are saying the manifest and the unmanifest give different result. If you follow the manifest, it will lead to manifest leads to destruction. Another way of looking at it as destruction is that that when we do upasana of the manifest, the Karya Brahma, then we meaning your Ishta Devata, meaning your God, meaning your God with form, with elephant trunk or with Narayan Bhagwan with Chaturbhuj, or whoever, or Jesus on the cross, or whoever, does not matter. But they are all with form. And whenever you focus on these gods with form, they take away your poverty, they take away your sins, they help you to become, whatever your wishes are, those desires get satisfied. And you will notice that many people who focus on the God with form as an idea, they get a lot of powers. And anyone who has a power cannot stop without exhibiting that power. Whether it is power of recognition, whether it is power of erudition, whether it is power of contemplation, whether it is power of healing someone. If you have money in your pocket, you will spend. And as a result, as one starts getting the powers, his mind corrupts. He forgets the goal. Destruction. Destruction of his focus. This is a second meaning of this that I am telling you. So, whatever our God is, when we focus on Him, that God is with form, and it is seen that that God takes care of us when we do upasana, when we sit near Him. How do we sit near Him? Either you do the puja, or you sit with the mantra in your, or bring His form in your mind and sit with Him, be in communion with Him, and that is what is told here. Sambhutim cha vinasham cha yastadvedo bhayagang saha vinasho dharmo yasya karyasya sa tena dharmina abhedena uchyate vinasha iti. So, another word for sambhuti, another word for manifest is destruction, vinasham. Just like another name for man is husband. And what, okay, we understand. What is another name for husband? Vinasham. Why? Every now and then he keeps vanishing. The moment father comes, husband vanishes. Vinasham. Vanish, vinash. I think the word came from vinash. Huh? So all our roles are vanishing. Same way. The rule is that anything that we focus upon with a form will eventually lead to no form. Because that is the way our mind functions. Thought manifests and then thought unmanifests. Breath manifests, breath unmanifests. Action manifests, action unmanifests. See? तेन तद उपासनेन अनैश्वर्यम अधर्म कामादि दोष जातम च मृत्युम तीर्त्वा हिरण्यगर्भोपासनेन ह्यणिमादि प्राप्ति ही फलम. Then he says that having transcended tena tad upasanena, having done the upasana, having transcended these, then sambhuti is taken care of. So here the word sambhuti, here at the bottom it is, in the next page it is written that the sambhuti has to be converted into asambhuti. Manifest has to be read as unmanifest. Why? That is its destination. That is its destination. Therefore, that will be the correct meaning when this topic is being analyzed. And here it is told the what? So, by where are we? तेन तद उपासनेन अनैश्वर्यम अधर्म कामादि दोष जातम च मृत्युम तीर्त्वा. Then so whatever upasana we are doing, with whatever desire that we are doing, with whatever desire we are doing the focusing or the contemplation or the meditation, and whatever the whatever the what you call errors that are happening as a result of that upasana, the because whenever we sit, like we are sitting here, you are listening, sometimes mind gets distracted. It's a error that has been committed. Suddenly some thought comes, we are listening and we go into a reverie. Error has happened. So when we do proper upasana and are able to transcend all these errors, and what happens when we transcend all these errors? Because this upasana is by taking some support. Support has to be necessarily manifest. Whether, even if it is a mantra, whether it is a breath, whether it is your God, it is manifest. And when you are absolutely focused on Him, there is no distraction, and as a result, you overcome death. Now you are at such a stage in your life wherein you are unafraid of this life. You are unafraid of death because you know, because of your love for your God, that you are completely taken care of. You know He is inside you, He is outside you. That everything that is happening in your life is by His grace alone. And therefore you are following Him. Such a person who is such a devout devotee who has surrendered to Him, he conquers, he goes beyond mrityum tirtva. Mrityum tirtva, he goes beyond death. And then it says, mrityum tirtva, hiranya garbhopasanena yanimadi praptihi phalam. And as a result, focusing on the form of the Lord, Hiranyagarbha, focusing on the totality, considering that particular form of the God, the manifest, the Karya Brahma, to be a manifestation of the infinite, of the totality. We use those words very loosely. When we look at the form of Ram, we look at the form of Krishna, and we say, oh, is infinite. How can form be infinite? Yet He is. So, but question is, where is your attention? If our attention is on the form, not on the infinity, but on the form, and we are surrendered to that form is an expression of Hiranyagarbha. Then all the possible, whatever he wants to grace, because you are not demanding anything, or you may demand, but you will get here Animadi Prapti, means that seeker who is doing this upasana will be blessed with the various powers, various siddhis. And then it says, Tena anaishwaryadi mrityum atitya asambhutya avyakritopasanaya amrutam prakrutilaya lakshanam ashnute. So when we focus on, here it is told that when we focus on any form, the only blessing that you will get is various powers, and depends which god you are praying. If you pray to the Indra, you will be free of hunger, thirst, heat, cold, old age and death. If you contemplate on Brahmaji, again all those rules. But when we say old age and death, from Indra you may pop back into the earthly plane again and again, but from Brahmaji's lok, Satya lok, only at the end of time, when the final dissolution takes place. And then after that, what will happen? Again you will be popped out. Again the manifestation will begin. Thus, so the fruit of this upasana is only Aishwarya, and Aishwarya is the various siddhis, the small things that are persecuting you in your life today. What is persecuting majority of COVID? Corona is persecuting us. Never know. It's not leaving us. But in the God's abode, there is no corona. There is no ill health. In Melbourne, one day 32 degrees, next day 9 degrees. In God's abode, every day beautiful temperature. Same. Night also same, beautiful breeze, fragrant breeze, caressing breeze. No disease. So, mrityum tirtva. And when he does, but when he does not wish all these siddhis, he takes a bypass from the siddhis. He doesn't get caught up in the siddhis. Remember, if he practices them independently, he will get caught up. But if he bypasses this and says, no, I don't want these siddhis, then what do you want? Nothing. Right? He goes beyond form. Then what is that? Asambhuti. And how does he go to Asambhuti? Through Prakriti Laya Roop. And when he does that, what does he get? He gets Amritatva. Amritatva means relative immortality. He becomes deathless. One way is deathless, the other positive side is immortal. And in this manner, the 14th verse was talking about the different results of the two upasanas. Now what does he say? Sambhutim cha vinasham chetyatra varnalopena nirdesho drashtavyah prakriti layafala shruti anurodhat. Sambhutim cha vinasham cha, by when we practice this together, and by practicing this together, by practicing Sambhuti with form, we get the powers, and then we bypass the powers, having experienced them, we focus on the Asambhuti, and by focusing on Asambhuti, doing Upasana of Asambhuti through Prakriti Laya, we reach to Amritatva, relative immortality. So the Shruti, Shruti meaning, so the scriptures are saying, and now what is the way to practice this, or what is this Prakriti Laya? That is we have to understand. So here he says, Manusha Vitta Sadhyam Phalam Shastra Lakshanam Prakriti Layantam. As instructed by the scriptures, the Prakriti Laya must be practiced. The cow, the earth, and the earth, etc. And that is the wealth of the humans, and also the Daivi Sampatti. First was Manusha Sampatti. Manusha Sampatti means the wealth of the human beings, and the second is Daivi Sampatti, which is the wealth of the gods. And there, and if we follow the scriptures and the processes given in the scriptures, then we will get, as a human being, you will get all the wealth if you practice the upasana of the manifest. For that, in our scriptures, the Agnihotra Adi is given, all the upasanas are given, the Brahmana part of the Vedas is there, the upasana or the various suktas are there, the mantra upasana is there. By doing all that, you will get something or the other, some result will come. And if you chant Narayana Suktam, there is a result given there. If you chant Purusha Suktam, the result is given there. If you chant Ganapati Atharva, the result is given there. What the result is? If you chant Vishnu Sahasranam or Lalita Sahasranam, the result is given. What you will get as a result of this chant. If you chant Rudram, the Chamakam is the result. That is the phala. So for all these things, and same thing with the Brahmana part, where all the Vedas, all the Agnihotra Adi practices are given, the fire sacrifices. If you do it this way, you can get a child. If you do it this way, you can get a boy or a girl. If you do it this way, so many times, you can become the king of the earth. If you do it this way, you will go to the heavens. There are 7 types of heaven. Now, for every heaven, you have to spend more. What? Money and time and efforts. You have to be more single pointed. So the ultimate goal, according to the authority of the scriptures, is absorption into the Prakriti Laya. And this can only be done by man by practicing upasana. See? It's very simple. A very healthy, intelligent, free man looks at a girl and does upasana of that girl and falls down to become a husband. And vice versa. And can't imagine a life without that. Same way, a very healthy young person with no issues suddenly starts focusing only on the manifest. And this mistake you, me, and everyone are doing. What is that? Focusing only on the waking world. That is the mistake. When we are talking about approaching, practicing the upasana of the unmanifest and the manifest together, I think I mentioned this point last week, taking the manifest, the waking and the dream, and the unmanifest, the deep sleep, Sushupti Avastha, together. Then you can transcend the 3. If your subjective approach is there. But if you take, where are all our energies geared? Where are all our, what we have taken to be reality for us? Only the waking. We don't take, if you are taking waking to be the reality, you must take dream also to be reality. Why don't you take dream also as reality? Why don't you go back to the same dream every night? Why only you come back to the same waking every day? Because you have made a deep decision within your intellect that this is real. And as long as you consider waking only to be real, you are doing upasana of the manifest. But is this manifest the end game of our human life? No. Sometime during the day, the manifest automatically goes out of our mind, and in its place, sleep comes, unmanifest comes, naturally. So at the world level, I'm not talking subjectively, only at the worldly level, the maximum limit that a seeker can reach is from manifest, focusing on the manifest, going beyond the manifest, contemplating on the unmanifest through the lay prakriya, and gaining amrutatva, relative immortality. That is the ultimate goal that a seeker can attain if he has taken the waking only to be real. And if he is taking waking, dream and deep sleep to be real, okay, he is approaching the three. The maximum he can reach is amrutatva, relative immortality. Is relative immortality equal to absolute immortality? No. Relative immortality is like in Christianity they say one day that's why they bury all the bodies. So one day they will stand up. They'll become alive again. Same thing happens in Hinduism also. We go to the abode of the god and we become immortal there. But we have not become realized. Realization is not equal to going to some heaven. Heaven is temporary. The only true immortality is where self realizes the self. That alone is self-realization. Going to Saket, going to Kailash, going to Vaikuntha with limited understanding, then it is not realization. Therefore, here he says, Ataha, here he says, Etavati sansara gatihi. Etavati sansara, this is the maximum that in sansar one can achieve. What is that? Relative immortality. So, I'll put another example, maybe that will help. If water is absolute, ocean is totality, wave is individuality, and the wave, because it considers itself to be a form, it puts attention on the total form. I want to surrender to ocean. But having surrendered to ocean, he realizes, oh my God, all waves are in me. I am not only one wave, I am all the waves. He is free of death. The wave has become free of death because now it has realized it is the total ocean. But has it realized that it is water? No. Exactly the same way. The individual having surrendered by doing upasana to the totality is this process. It attains a relative immortality. And in relative immortality, I am in all are in me. I am in all and all are in me. But I am transcendental and eminent. Here, eminent part is understood, that all are in me and I am in all of them. But I am transcendental. That aspect has not clicked yet. That I am existence. That has not been realized. अतः परम पूर्वोक्तम आत्म एव अभूत विजानत इति. So what did we say? Iti sarvatma bhava eva sarvaishana sannyasa jnana nishthafalam. So we told that till here was the what you can attain in this world, the relative immortality, and after that further on it was told atma eva abhut vijanatah. In this seventh mantra it was told that the one who has gone beyond the three desires, putreshna, vitteshna and lokeshna, the desire for progeny, desire for wealth, and the desire for name and fame in this world. And by renouncing all these three desires, such a person is called a sannyasi, who is tyagarup, who is of the nature of, who is a renunciate. Sannyasi is a renunciate. And what does he attain? He attains sarvatma bhav. See, God also is having sarvatma bhav. All are in me, I am in all. It's also sarvatma bhav. So the language is similar. When in Vishishta Advait they interpret the Upanishads, the meaning is the same. But where is our attention? So here he says that person. So when our attention is on the world, the maximum you can attain in this world is relative immortality by focusing on the God. God is also having his own world. His abode is called Kailash, etc. You are in the individual world, he is in the total world. Okay, I'll go to the total world. But you are still in the world. You are still in Prakriti. But sannyasi who has given up all desires, he attains to sarva atma bhava. He sees the entire creation none other than the self. He doesn't say they are in me or I am in them. He sees I alone am. That's it. For such a person, such a sannyasi, the world is not separate. The world is not distant. The world is not other than him. Sarvatma bhav means ekameva dvitiya, the vision of oneness. That is absolute immortality. Continuing, एवं द्विप्रकारः प्रवृत्ति निवृत्ति लक्षणः वेदार्थः अत्र प्रकाशितः. In this manner, here pravritti nivritti, these are the two ways by which the Vedas illuminate this topic. Pravritti is involvement in the world. So when you are doing sambhuti or asambhuti upasana, you are involving in something. It's through involvement. It's through support of something. It's through support of something specific or non-specific. Or here the non-specific is absence. And nivritti lakshana, nivritti is tyage naike amritatva manashuhu. You are not allowing any support to hang on to you. You are bypassing every support. Why? You are very clear that you don't have to reach anywhere. You are very clear. You have got no axe to grind in this creation. You are very clear that the sambhuti and the asambhuti, the manifest and the unmanifest, are expressions of Prakriti. It has got nothing to do with who I am. And as long as we are focusing on manifest or unmanifest, the urge will be there. I must do meditation, I must do yoga, I must do this, I must do that. But for a sincere seeker who is wanting or who is wanting liberation, is seeking liberation. Yes, liberation, initially that is the way he begins his journey. And as he is beginning in that journey, he is absolutely clear that he must not become a slave of any desire. Putreshna, Vitteshna, Lokeshna. They will keep popping up. Keep negotiating through the traffic of desires. They will keep coming. You keep negotiating. Where are you going? No, I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to reach anywhere. Sannyasi is very clear. Because if he has to reach somewhere, then it becomes a thought. It becomes something separate from him. It becomes a destination which is other than the self. So as he is negotiating through the traffic of desires, a point comes where there is no desire. Or another way we can put that whether there is desire or no desire, he reaches a point of no disturbance. He reaches a point of complete abidance. He comes to realize only once it clicks. And once it clicks that I am who I am, not because of anything, not because of a thought I am, not because of any support I am. No, I am as I am. Nisargadatta Maharaj said, I am that. After knowing I am that, still the desires will come and persecute us. Don't forget. People will see Master getting troubled, Master having diseases, Master having hunger. But he is not disturbed by it. Now he doesn't need to prove anything. He doesn't need to run away from anything. He doesn't need to run towards anything. In the practice of upasana of sambhuti, asambhuti, we are running away from our world and trying to go to the higher worlds. But in this, where one has here the Vedas tell that the two paths are given, the pravritti, the path of involvement, and nivritti, the path of withdrawal. The path of involvement What is the maximum that you can gain in the path of involvement? Relative immortality by practicing the path of Sambhuti plus Asambhuti when done together, not independently. And what does a sannyasi do? Does he follow this path? No. Then what does he follow? Ishavasyamidagam sarvam yatkanchit jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjitaha magruda kasya swigdhanam. What does a renunciate do? He practices the first verse. For whom was this? Sambhuti Asambhuti? For the one who was practicing the second verse, who could not practice the first one. For him, these various pathways are given. तत्र प्रवृत्ति लक्षणस्य वेदार्थस्य विधि प्रतिषेध लक्षणस्य कृत्स्नस्य प्रकाशने प्रवर्ग्यान्तं ब्राह्मणम् उपयुक्तम्. So in the Vedas, what are the do's and don'ts in the path of the practices for the one who is following the path of pravritti, involvement? What are the do's and don'ts for a person who is practicing upasana on manifest and unmanifest? All those do's and don'ts are given in the Brahmana part of the Vedas, in the upasana part of the Vedas, in the mantra part of the Vedas. See, Vedas are divided into three parts: Brahmana, Upasana and Upanishads, and Gyan. Brahmana is karma, Upasana is subtle, so bhakti, and Vedas are transcendental, Gyan. And if you are practicing the Brahmana part, which is the ritualistic part, and you are practicing the Upasana part, it will give you relative immortality. Only if you follow the Vedanta, which is the Upanishads, and come to the conclusion, less conclusion, as given by the Upanishads, then alone absolute immortality, I'm using the word, is gained. Actually it is a gainless gain. So here, continuing, so it is told, निवृत्ति लक्षणस्य वेदार्थस्य प्रकाशने अत ऊर्ध्वं बृहदारण्यकम् उपयुक्तम्. And the nivritti lakshana, what are the signs of practicing withdrawal, etc., the do's and don'ts for withdrawal, etc. That is the scriptures, that means the Upanishads from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, they are taken into consideration. See, we study Upanishads without preparation. When we were studying in the ashram, some people came because they were highly inspired. Some grace, and they came. They have not done any upasana. They have not done any Agnihotra, etc. Just out of the blue, something caught them and they came. Some of them came, they have done lot of puja, archa, they know the chanting, they know the rudram, they know the various suktams. They are experts. They know the entire Bhagavad Gita. There was one person, he knew the entire Tulsi Ramayana in our batch. And who are we? Who don't know anything. I never heard of Upanishad till I went to the ashram. See? And there is one person who knows the entire Ramayana. But do I feel low in front of him? Does he feel great in front of me? You don't even know what Upanishad is. That was our lot. So Upanishads, we were not taught Upanishads the first day when we entered into the ashram. After good 1.5 years of slogging, 10, 12 hours a day, no days off. After 1.5 years, then Upanishads were taken. We were made to do puja, we were made to do havan, we were made to chant mantras with the Vedic chanting. We had to study Sanskrit. Whether we are interested or not interested, you have got no choice. We had to meditate in the morning. We had to wash the dishes. We had to clean the roads. We had to do the gardening. We used to get maybe 4.5 hours sleep every night. 5 hours sleep maximum. Day in and day out. And half an hour, 45 minutes nap in the afternoon. Because there is no other question. You are exhausted by afternoon. And so much heat. All that rubbed. It was like a washing machine effect. Cleaning and cleaning and cleaning and cleaning and cleaning. And eventually you realize, man, I should stop trying to work it out. I can't work it out. And then the Upanishads are presented. So here it is told that, see, some people think because 70% of the Vedas are Brahmana part, the Agnihotra, if you do this, you will get this result, if you do this, you will get this result. So they think because 70% of the Upanishad is, the Vedas, 70% is Karma Kand. So they think karma is the most important. Then some feel upasana, contemplating on the gods, merging into the Lord, invoking the divine, that is more important. Why? Next 25% is that. And somewhere in between, some Upanishads are hidden here and there, like jewels, gems. Only a rare few come to them. And if we are not practiced the first part, if we are not karma, what was karma for? Was it to have long life or was it for purification? For purification. What was upasana for? Was it to get relative immortality? Was upasana to be practiced, the various mantras to be chanted, the gods to be invoked? Is it to go and sit in their abode and say, hey, come on, move out, now I have come, I will sit on your throne? That is not the purpose. See? And very few are able to catch this. And if you are catching it at this moment, understand, grace is flowing. if you understand the place of karma, if you understand the place of upasana, and you understand the place of absolute immortality, the Vedas, the Upanishads, which direct you towards that, and it's not direct you towards that, no, they direct you towards that. You towards that is upasana. You towards that is the Upanishads. And it is not you. The moment you come to yourself, it's all that there is only you. See? So, Upanishads are given to those who have transcended the three ashanas, who are not disturbed, taken for a ride, who are not indulging in, who have renounced the desire for progeny, who have renounced the desire for wealth, and those who have renounced the desire for, what is the last one? Name and fame. To such a prepared mind, Upanishad is given. And when that Upanishad is given to such a person, it will be like a spark. It will catch fire straight away. And what are we? We are wet wood. Spark after spark of Upanishads are coming and trying to light us up. And we are only smoke is coming out. Only smoke. Understanding, not understanding. Not understanding, understanding. Doubts, confusion. This is too much. This is too deep. This is not possible for us. This is very difficult. This is smoke. All this is smoke. But the possibility of sifting through this smoke and allowing ourselves to light up by the spark of the Upanishads, that possibility is always there. And that possibility is only for the humans, not for gods. देखो भैया, where are we? Page 31. तत्र निषेकादि निकेशादि श्मशानान्तं कर्म कुर्वन् जिजिविषयो विषयः विद्यया सह परब्रह्म विषयया तदुक्तं विद्यां च अविद्यां च यस्तद्वेदो भयगं सः अविद्यां मृत्युं तीर्त्वा विद्यया मृतमश्नुते. So those people who wish, be attentive, those people who wish to remain indulged in the thoughts of their birth, their memories, their achievements in this world, their family, their relatives, their successes, etc. And they want, and their only disposition is that life is about karma, life is about action, life is about I have to perform, I have to put efforts. See? Then such people, and this is how they want to continue living, then they must continue to Apara Brahma. Apara Brahma, What is Apara Brahma? Apara Brahma is upasana on manifest and unmanifest. That is Apara Brahma. Apara Brahma is the Bhutakash and what do you call? Bhutakash and Chittakash is Apara Brahma. I am putting it in so many different ways. So Bhutakash, the gross space in which the entire universe is inclusive, and Chittakash, the mental space, and in the mental space, the gross space is only one aspect, one superimposition, one imagination. Another way of putting it, that they only waking, dream, sleep, waking, dream, sleep, waking, dream, sleep, waking, dream. This is their reality. And out of that, only waking is the real. Rest is okay, it's there, I know, but it's okay. I don't want to contemplate the three together. So, because karma is happening only in the waking, isn't it? The doership is expressing only in the waking. It is expressing in the dream also. Because every person dreams a dream as waking. When he is in the dream, he doesn't know he is a dreamer. He thinks he is a waker. Till he wakes up, he realizes, arey, that was a dream. While dreaming, nobody says, I am a dreamer. When the dream is going on, it is as if it's real. See? So, how does this person live then? He lives, remember one of the verses before came, Vidyam, Vidyam cha, Avidyam cha. So, Avidya was karma and Vidya was upasana. He who does the Avidya and Vidya together means he who does karma and upasana together. So, he who wishes or continues to accept that he was born and he has to do karma, means perform actions till his last breath, such a person, and there is nothing wrong. He must, some people are born that way, what to do? You are also doing the same thing. Morning you go to work and evening you are in satsang, but you are performing actions. But if you are only focused on that end game is, I have to just be good, do good, take care of everyone, not hurt anyone, and so many different things. Then here he says that such a person, he should practice the Vidya and Avidya together, and that is the karma and the Devata Jnana. Devata Jnana was the knowledge of the gods or invocation of the gods. He should do that together, and as a result he goes beyond the death, goes beyond the mrityu, and he attains a relative immortality. Amrutatvam ashnute. Who is this person who attains relative immortality? Very important point. Who is this person?
Who is doing upasana of manifest and unmanifest together.
Go even further back. He is the person who believes that he was born and came into existence, and who believes that one day he is going to die. Therefore he is seeking immortality. A sannyasi who has no desire, who has given up everything, he is not looking at immortality by merging into the God. He knows his nature is immortality. He doesn't have to go anywhere to attain immortality. You're seeing the difference what we are. So both ways. A person who considers himself to be born. So, are you born? No, your body is born. Atma is never born. But Atma identified with body. I am born on this particular date, my birthday, Now I am so many years old. And as long as we consider ourselves to be the body, then only one thing, karma, action. Manasa vacha kaya, action after action after action. Then such a person must follow the karma and upasana in unison so that he attains a relative immortality. And it's okay. At least he's not a trouble to the world. At least he's focusing on something higher. At least he's living a righteous life. At least he's committed to higher principles. At least he's not caught up in drugs, drinks, wine, alcohol. He's living a good life if he does all these things. Whenever we think of higher, automatically our life integrates. Our personality gets integrated when we think of the higher. See? Then he says that tatra kena margena amrutatvam ashnuta iti uchyate. By which way does he gain immortality? The question is asked. See, the person whom we are talking about is whose attention is that he was born and he'll be buried. That I popped into existence and I will be burned out of existence. We are talking about this person. We are talking about this person. And such a person wants to live by doing karma, and the one who wants to do karma is living in the relative plane. That's all, and it's okay, nothing wrong. So here it says, so how does he gain immortality? So it is told, iti uchyate, now it is told. What? Tat yat tat satyam asau sa adityo ya esha etasmin mandale purushaha yaschayam dakshine akshan purushaha etad ubhayagang satyam brahmopasinaha yatha uktam yathokta कर्मकृत च यह सह अंतकाले प्राप्ते सत्यात्मानम् आत्मनः प्राप्ति द्वारम याचते हिरण्मयेन पात्रेण इति. So it is told that so the question is being asked, how does he do the upasana? That was the question. Tatra kena margena amrutatvam ashnuta iti uchyat. How should I get that immortality? So now the answer is being told by the teacher. And what is that? That which is the truth is the Aditya, the sun. That which is the truth is, see, before it was told there was a path of withdrawal and there was a path of involvement or participation in the world. And those who follow the path of participation, path of involvement, they follow the karma and upasana. Thus it was told that they conquer death and attain relative immortality. And now it is told that what is the path by which this jiva who lives in this relative world, in this relative existence, can attain immortality. Which is that path? So in answer, the teacher is saying that Paramatma is in the sun, Paramatma is the sun. Remember, Bhagavan says that in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, that I gave the knowledge to the sun. Nay, I am. Sun is another manifestation of mine. Like ocean is saying that all the waves are my manifestations. So what is this truth? What is this Paramatma? What is this Upasana that we have to do? That Paramatma is in the sun. Now this is another way of focus. What is he saying? That that which is truth, that which is pure existence, that pure existence itself, that Paramatman itself is Aditya, the sun. And that person, see, we are seeing the fixed sun, but we know there is Surya Devata, the personality in the sun, the potential in the sun, that Purusha, Aditya Purusha we say, no? That Aditya Purusha, that conscious principle which is making the sun as sun. So that person, is he in the physical sun out hanging there in the sky? Is the consciousness in the sun? Yes, without sun the world is not possible. But is the sun conscious, or is the sun nature of light? Sun is of the nature of light. Sun is not conscious. There is no life as we know it in it. Yet we say there is a sun god, isn't it? Where is that sun god? So if you want to pursue the Purusha, you want to pursue the conscious principle, then it says that Purusha is available in the right eye of the seeker. Understand? Again, Laya Prakriya. So that Purusha in the sun, that personality or the person in the sun is available in the right eye of the seeker. Then it continues. We'll just conclude this, and then it's already, you're all on holidays, isn't it? No? Okay, I'll finish quickly if you have to go to work. And that sun out there in the sky is the truth, and this Purusha in the right eye is also the truth. You cannot say this is truth and that is untrue. No, how can? Don't imagine two. Both are sat, both are truth. Both are true. Then he continues, Dakshine, where are we? Dakshine Akshan Purusha Etad Ubhayagang Satyam Brahmopasino. I read all that, okay. And the one who contemplates on that Brahma, on that Purusha in the right eye, and who lives in an integrated manner in his life while contemplating on that person in the right eye, when the final breath comes, he merges into the Aditya Mandal. Here it is told, Yathokta karma krutcha, he is doing the prescribed duties, etc. Yaha saha antakale prapte, when the final moment comes, the demise comes, then satya atmanam atmana prapti dwaram yachate hiranmayana patrena. He goes and merges into the totality. He merges into the totality. we are talking only about relative totality, relative immortality here. We are not talking about absolute immortality. He merges into the so uh, then he now till here it is like that, and then he says when the last moments are approaching, the last breath is approaching, or the last moments are approaching, many people come to know. Many people come to know now 3 days later I'm going to go. Some people usually 6 months before they come to know they are going to leave the body, and automatically they are preparing, everything is slowing down, they cut down their meals or they finish the last bit, they start winding up the business business of life. What was the life? The business of life of involvement. They are now starting to bring it together. Like our Swamiji, I called him the other day and he says, Swamiji, he's calling me Swamiji. I'm calling him Swamiji, he's calling me. I said, oh, my bookstore, it was with so many hundreds and thousands of books were there. I told the publisher, you take all of them, otherwise I don't know what to do. I'm throwing them out. So he took them back. Then 2 people who were staff there taking care of all the books, sending it all over the world or to the people, whoever ordered, I gave them their a check and told them they are free now, they can go look for another job. He says, see, it's so freeing. Now I've got no responsibility of the books, no responsibility of the staff also. And what else? Now I'm not traveling also. No more travel. This is winding up the shop. Just like every night we wind down our day to merge into sleep. Similarly, the final day will come. You will come to know. So when that happens, this Atma, Hiranmayena Patrena, with this mantra, it calls out to the effulgent person. It calls out to the total person. It calls out to the Purusha, who is inherent, or who is the Atma of the sun, who is the self of the sun, who is the self of the right eye. It calls out to that. What it calls out, we'll look at it in our next class. The thought continues, so we'll see it in our next class. I'll just read it and conclude. Hiranmayena patrena satyasyapi hitam mukham tattvam pushan apavrunu satya dharmaya drushtaye. So it's a prayer. And what is this prayer? We will see in our next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. We will be having our tomorrow's class. You are all there? Tomorrow evening you are all there. Those who attend, are you going to be there?
Yes, Swamiji.
Okay, then we will continue with our class tomorrow. Just sit quietly for few moments. Before the moment is over, I'll wake you up. Don't worry. Hari Om.
Om Swamiji.